good evening, and thank you for joining us tonight. A special shout out to those embracing the darkness with their lights off. We're thrilled to bring you this episode's stories and invite you to become an integral part of our community by liking and subscribing to OneDeepVoid. Welcome aboard. Let's dive in. This story I want to share with you happened a few years ago. At the time, my cousin was living at my grandma's house because she had been orphaned very young. Both her parents died in a car crash. My grandma was always kind of cold and mean to us. We figured she didn't like kids much, which is why she treated us that way. Whenever we visited my grandma, I got the same warnings from my parents. Don't go into your grandma's room. Don't touch anything on her altar. And they really stressed, never eat anything your grandma offers you. Weird as it seemed, I was used to these warnings, so I didn't think much of it. One day my parents had to leave me at my grandma's because they had to run some errands, which was rare since my mom didn't trust my grandma much. But that day, they had no choice. When we got there, my cousin greeted us with a big smile, and we immediately went up to her room to play. My parents treated her like their own daughter, so her room had a PlayStation, a TV, and lots of video games they had given her. It was easy to have fun with her. We were playing when my grandma told us she was going to the market and would be back in a few minutes.
Don't touch anything, and remember, you're not allowed in my room,
she warned before leaving. We continued playing but eventually decided to explore, especially curious about my grandma's altar. It had strange figures, pictures of saints, some candles, and old jewelry. We always thought my grandma might be some kind of witch. We were really scared of her. While exploring the house, we clearly saw the figure of a child running down the stairs toward the front door. The strangest part was that we both saw it at the same time, and we were both speechless, just staring at each other. Right after seeing this, we heard my grandma's voice calling us from the second floor. It was odd because we hadn't seen her come back, but we ran upstairs anyway, hearing her calling from her room. We stopped at her door, hesitant to enter, when we heard the front door open and my grandma calling from downstairs. Scared, we ran towards the stairs and saw her, but we could still hear her desperate voice from her room. We told my grandma what happened, but she just said,
"Stay away from my room. How many times do I have to tell you?"
She didn't ask about the voice or the child. She didn't seem to care. We went back to my cousin's room to play video games and forget about what happened. Later, my parents came to pick me up, and I went home. Some time passed and my grandma got sick and passed away. She always wore a necklace with a talisman, which my uncles couldn't find while preparing for the burial. They thought she might have left it somewhere else and didn't think much of it. We attended the funeral, and the atmosphere felt dark, not just sad. After burying my grandma, life went on as normal. One day my cousin called me asking to meet. I agreed and went to my grandma's house, where my uncles had let her stay while deciding what to do with my grandma's belongings. My cousin looked worn out, tired with dark circles under her eyes. She confessed she had kept my grandma's talisman, feeling she had some right to it after enduring my grandma's mistreatment. She said that ever since my grandma passed away, she had been experiencing sleep paralysis and seeing a woman's figure standing at the foot of her bed in the dark, just standing there. She also mentioned intensified shadows, hearing noises, and things being moved when she was alone in the house. While she was telling me this, I tried to calm her down, suggesting it might be because she was living alone and that my grandma's house had always been a bit creepy. Before I could finish, we heard footsteps upstairs and my grandma's voice saying, "Girls, come help me," along with banging on the door. Without thinking, we ran out of there. I swear as we left, I saw my grandma's silhouette in the window watching us. We went to my parents' house where I was still living and told my mom what happened. My mom, being my grandma's daughter, said, "You silly girls, you don't know what your grandma was into." She took the talisman from my cousin, asked us to get in the car, and drove back to my grandma's house. She went into the house alone to return it, grabbed some things for my cousin, and we quickly left. In the end, my cousin stayed with us for a while and we never had to go back to my grandma's house again. I'm not sure what kind of rituals or things my grandma was involved in, but I'm certain it was nothing good, My mom avoids the topic whenever I ask her about it, but I hope she'll tell me what she knows someday. Thanks for reading my story. I'm someone who loves vintage things. For a long time, I've enjoyed visiting flea markets and garage sales to find items that are not just vintage in appearance, but are genuinely old and have a story. To me, it's magical to share a story with someone else through an object, knowing someone else once owned it. As a writer, I like to sit and observe these items, then start writing stories based on what comes to mind. I imagine who the last owner could have been, what they were like, their likes and dislikes, and so on. I imagine their life through these objects, which helps me write my books. One day I bought a wardrobe, and that's when I understood that demons exist. I found this wardrobe at a flea market and immediately thought, I want it. It was a strange feeling, as if my mind was trying to make me buy it. These invasive thoughts kept saying, it has to be mine. I couldn't understand why I felt this way about this particular item. It was a large flea market with many items, but I couldn't stop thinking about the wardrobe, even though it wasn't even pretty. Before leaving, I thought, a bit of paint here, a fix there, I know a great carpenter. It would look nice in my room. When I asked the flea market staff about the wardrobe, they said, oh, the one in the back? Take it. I asked, how much? And they replied, it's okay. Take it for free. Did you like it? Take it. I found it strange, but they insisted it had been there too long, and if I took it right away, it was mine for free. I called my brother to bring his truck. When he saw the wardrobe, he was like, really? It's pretty ugly. But I thought it just needed some work. I'd been criticized for my antique choices before, so this was nothing new. Once I acquired it, I sent it to the carpenter, and the result was beautiful. I decided to place it in my room. It was one of those small, old wardrobes, not even 20 inches wide. I began to doubt whether it was a good purchase, but by then it was too late. It was already home, and I was stuck with it. At least it would serve as inspiration for my stories, so I felt that was justification enough for me to keep it. Strange things began to happen. Every time I left and came back, the doors were open. I blamed it on nearby construction at first, but it was also happening at night. Lights would be on, and the wardrobe doors always open. Feeling uneasy, I asked the carpenter to add a lock to prevent the doors from opening on their own. Yet, it happened again. I came back to my room to find the lock dismantled on my table and the wardrobe doors open. This made me curious. I thought maybe the spirit of a previous owner was trying to send a message. But then when I started writing, thinking about the stories behind the wardrobe, I could only write about violent things. This wasn't my genre. My mind was filled with nightmarish images, strange entities. I tried relaxing and thinking of different things, but as soon as I focused on the wardrobe, it was all murderers, violent scenes, blood-filled rooms, horrific stuff. I decided to stop writing and hang out with friends. Returning home, the wardrobe doors were open again. I tried to write about other things, but focusing on the wardrobe brought back those dark thoughts. One evening, while on my phone, I suddenly felt very sleepy, unusual for me as I usually struggle with insomnia. I fell asleep with my phone in my hand. Waking up in the middle of the night, I felt an urgency. Turning on my phone's flashlight, I saw hands coming out of the wardrobe and slowly closing its doors, as if they noticed I was awake. After that, I couldn't sleep in my room. I stayed awake until morning to call the carpenter and told him, "Please, take the wardrobe, it's yours." He refused, saying, "I don't want that thing back in my shop." I hadn't even shared my story with him, but he also didn't want to share what happened to him while repairing it, only saying, "That thing, it has something." I eventually got rid of the wardrobe. I'm not sharing how here, but since then, I believe in demons. Because those hands were not human. In 2014, my mom hosted my uncle, who had moved from Louisiana to Tennessee that year. He was having a tough time. It seemed like luck had been against him for the last few years. He'd lost his job, his wife left him and took the kids. It was a rough patch. My mom, being his younger sister, offered him a place to stay at our house until he could get back on his feet. Among my uncle's belongings was a small statue of a deity from Haitian culture. I don't even want to write its name after what happened. The statue was about 25 inches tall, adorned with odd items like coins, tied-up hair, and some smelly plant branches. It was a beautiful piece, with its cane and typical top hat. The moment I saw it, I was drawn to it. A few days later, I came home to find my uncle gone. He'd left without a word, and we never saw him again. But he hid that statue in our house, and I knew where. When I checked and saw it was still there, I foolishly decided to keep it. It was so pretty, and I thought nothing more of it. After a couple of months, I moved to an apartment for work and took the statue with me. I displayed it on a shelf, so anyone visiting could see it. Some friends even warned me, "Get rid of that thing, it's not good, it's from the devil." But I didn't believe in that stuff, and ignored them. Time passed and a job opening came up that would almost double my salary. Excited, I applied but didn't hear back. Then one day at work, remembering how people ask the deity for favors, I said, "Please, help me get a call for the interview, just one opportunity, that's all I ask for." Nothing happened until the end of the day, when my manager called, saying the project leader wanted to interview me. As I walked to the interview, I thought about the statue and said to myself, "Thank you." After the interview, I got home and was thinking I should show gratitude. I kissed the statue's feet, believing that was thanks enough. I didn't think much of it at the time. That night, I woke up to a strong burnt smell and found myself paralyzed in bed as something violently shook my bed. I tried to pray to the Holy Father, but forgot the words, and my voice started to sound strange every time I attempted it. Terrified, I eventually covered myself with a sheet and fell back asleep. The next morning, I discovered the electrical socket by my bed had burnt out. Without a second thought, I threw the statue away. However, that same day, I received a call from a neighbor, only to find out that my apartment had been burglarized. Convinced it was related to the statue, I retrieved it from the trash, cleaned it, and brought it back inside. Not knowing what to do and understanding it wasn't wise to just throw it away, I did something I'm not proud of. At a coworker's party, I hid the statue in their house and quickly left, heading home. After that, my life normalized. I didn't get the job, but nothing weird happened at my place anymore. Unfortunately, my coworker's luck turned bad shortly after. He lost his job and his savings, and I never told him about the statue. Recently, I visited him, and seeing his condition made me feel guilty. Before leaving, I checked where I had hidden the statue. It was still there. I thought about removing it, but I honestly wanted nothing more to do with that statue, so I left it there. I know what I did was wrong. I've passed a curse on to my coworker because of that cursed statue still in his house. I hope he discovers it one day and finds a way to dispose of it. As of now, I'm not planning to tell him about it, as I do not want to reintroduce any spiritual problems into my life.